Beautiful. Thank you. Yay! We did it. Are the microphones back on?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, in our Time for All Ages, and just now in singing together, we had a chance to experience both all being connected in a web of yarn, connected in a web of harmony. We got a little bit of a sense of how chaotic that could be, how amusing that could be, and also, I hope, some of the connection that can result from being held together in one web. Is there a feedback? No? Okay, I thought I heard a little bit of high-pitched feedback. We also got a chance to see how if we tugged on the string in one direction, and we're still holding on to it here. I don't know if the folks online can see that, but there is still, you can come in, you can duck under the yarn, come into our web. There's still yarn going through the sanctuary here, and we're welcoming people into it as we talk, and it's bringing us closer and closer together. So as a fiber artist and as a minister in seminary, I've long been caught by a particular quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I think you have heard this within the last week or two from Chaplain Dave. This is from his letter from a Birmingham jail. As I started thinking about this month's Soul Matters theme of belonging, this quote came to mind, and he says famously that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one, all affects all indirectly. So the fiber artist in me got to wondering, what if we took this metaphor seriously? And I want to start off by saying it's not easy to think about being interconnected when the stakes feel so high. This month has been a really hard time to think about interconnection. Everything feels really fraught nationally, but here in Lake County also specifically, people in the county are losing their jobs over private social media posts about things that are going on the national stage. And in Broadview at the ICE Detention Center, protesters are still being hit by tear gas and pepper bullets. And just the other week in Franklin Park, an immigrant was killed and shot by ICE officers after he had dropped his children off at daycare and school. We remember Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. He was an immigrant and a cook at a restaurant. And that's just here in our own proverbial backyards. From threats to the bodies of immigrants and trans people to efforts to crack down against free and private speech, the stakes are feeling high, and I'm saying that as a white, cisgendered woman of relative privilege. I can only imagine and continue to learn about what this time feels like for immigrants, for people of color, for trans people and people with disabilities. Every time I open the news, I wonder what I'm going to see. Yeah, I think people are having trouble hearing. Okay. To this mic? Okay. Thank you for letting me know you couldn't hear. Oh, okay. How's this?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good? All right. I'll shift over here. So I was saying, it's a hard time to be talking about belonging and connection because of everything that's going on in our society. I'm just repeating that for those who were having difficulties hearing. And as a fiber artist and as a minister, I want to take this garment of destiny seriously and think about how I can understand what's going on in my body of a white person, a cisgendered person, when threats to people of color and immigrants and trans people are so high in our country right now. Whenever I open the news, I don't know what I'm going to see. A new crackdown, a new law, a new executive order, a new raid or protest. And so what I've been thinking about over the last few weeks is that it's starting to look like an America that I don't necessarily recognize. In conversations with friends and seminary colleagues this past week, I've been talking with people about where the news of the day touches their lives. I think I need to stand over here, don't I? Yeah. I've been talking with people about where the news of the day touches their lives. And it's feeling like many of us are living in wildly different places. Some people told me they had barely heard of Charlie Kirk. I need to just hold on to, or is this one working? No.
You want to use the
I'm going to use this one. I'm figuring out I need to get myself at a very particular angle in order to have this actually pick up. So, okay. Hopefully we're all on the same page with what I've been saying, despite the slight challenges with technology. And I appreciate your bearing with me. So I've been talking to people about where the news of the day touches people's lives, and it feels like many of us are living in wildly different places. Some people told me they'd barely heard of Charlie Kirk, whereas for others, his name was very much a point of tension. Some people are dealing with signs and bumper stickers and news outlets from whatever the other side of the political spectrum is in their daily lives, and others experience this only when they travel from place to place. It feels very much like disconnection has become the name of the game. So one of the things I'm struggling with is how damaging to the fabric of our society it is to have this level of disconnect. Our mutual fabric, our mutual garment of destiny feels like it's snagging and fraying at the edges, spotted with holes, ripped and torn. The disconnection and unrecognizability feel so severe that sometimes it feels like what King called a garment of destiny is hanging together by just threads. And some of those threads are tragically made of sharp and cutting razor wire. This is not how I think belonging in America should feel. I think belonging should feel like a cozy woven blanket on a chilly day, welcoming and warm. And as emotions researcher Brené Brown says, belonging isn't just about fitting in, about making yourself fit to a pre-made cloth. It's about being welcomed for exactly who you are. So if our garment of destiny feels so uncomfortable, so dangerous, I want to take seriously what we can be taught by this metaphor. And for wool, it starts with the sheep. A sheep's wool is a remarkable thing. Wool protects the animal not only through the thickness of the coat, but also through the greasy substance known as lanolin, which literally repels water and keeps the sheep dry. If you work with fresh yarn, it's very sticky and thick and can actually be a good thing for hand lotion. It's also why, say, wool is such a great material for a fisherman's sweater or a Nordic ski sweater, because the wool has natural properties that keep the water off. But there's more than that. The reason we don't spin with our dog's hair or our cat's hair, for example, is not just that the fibers are relatively short. It's that they're too slippery. They don't hang together well. By contrast, wool has a natural crimp to it that helps the fibers to hang together. If you zoom in on an individual strand of wool fiber, you'll also see that the outermost layer is something called the cuticle, which are scales that overlap on each other, somewhat like the shingles on a roof. This cuticle layer then helps the fibers grab onto each other and create that protective barrier for the sheep. And it also allows the fibers to grab onto each other in spinning, creating strong yarns as a result. Feel free to play with the fiber that you're still holding onto or with what you took out of the bowl as it was passed around. Twist, untwist them, look at them, think about how the individual bits of that yarn are connected. In order to make yarn, the spinner has to take fiber, and there was some yellow fiber in there also. And as you draw that out, you'll note that if it hasn't been spun, it's going to come apart. So with spinning, with twisting together, comes strength, because otherwise it's just going to all pull apart. And that's why rope, for example, is twisted one way and then twisted back again the other way. This is called plying. It's plied back onto itself, and the more times it's plied back onto itself, the stronger it becomes. With twist comes strength. Now, sometimes you're going for an art yarn. Some of you have a yarn in there that's pretty nubby and bumpy, and I was trying to make it look interesting. And some of you have a yarn that is a lot smoother. But when you're starting out with weaving or with spinning, you're usually trying to create a balanced yarn, which means one that hangs evenly and nicely. Most weavers, like Linda Ligon in our reading, begin with plain or tabby weave. That's the basic over, under, over that you might have learned in school or done with a potholder loom. And you're aiming for a balanced weave without pulls or tugs or wobbly edges. And as Linda Ligon put it in the poem, I bought a little loom, a little plastic loom that wove a little square. And I wove square after square after square from dime store yarn, hoping that would make things whole. As you know from the poem, that wasn't enough. Part of the problem was simply weaving well. She said if you set the threads up on the loom with too much tension in one place, the garment might sag or hang in other places. It might hang oddly when you wear it. Pull the shuttle too hard as you weave back and forth, and you are going to get those funny edges, those odd gaps and sags and hourglass shapes, and nothing like my mind was yearning for, as Ligon put it. And I think that's where we've ended up today. Our garment of destiny has gaps and sags and holes and strange gerrymandered hourglass shapes threatening the integrity of the cloth. It's not a comfortable garment at best, and it's downright tragic and dangerous at worst. Martin Luther King's quote about the garment of destiny correctly understands that being part of one cloth joins us in a network of mutuality, as he called it. He's interested in how we're interconnected, interdependent even, to bring in our UU value. He says, I'm cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit by idly in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. This is when he says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if we're taking this metaphor seriously, we are all caught up together in a single garment of destiny. The emphasis is interrelatedness, interconnection, interdependence, our UU value. We're in this together. We're all twisted up together like a yarn spun around itself, or like a weaving shuttle carrying the weft yarn back and forth across the warp. But right now, being all twisted up together is not making me comfortable. It's not a comfortable time to be twisted up together. After all, there are some strands that make this garment not only uncomfortable, but dangerous, like it's been woven with strands of razor wire. There are old, dangerous yarns about white Christian nationalism and anti-immigrant rhetoric. There are sharp, thin threads that threaten the safety of trans and LGBTQIA people, people of color, neurodiverse folks, and people with disabilities. These yarns are hurtful and harmful to people I know and love and care about, and they're hurtful and harmful to people I do not know about, but care about nonetheless. Connection and belonging do not and cannot look like vilification and hate, because these can only create division and destruction. Yes, our network of mutuality is sagging and frayed on the edges. It has giant tears in it in places, and the fabric is hanging by threads. Those thin threads are twisted and knotted up with so much fear and anger and worry, and sometimes even what feels like despair. And yet those threads, sometimes those are all that is holding us together, those connections. Connections may be all we have. Connections mean that we are at least holding on to something, like those of you still grabbing on to pieces of yarn here in this room, keeping you connected one to another. And some of those threads, like the one that you're holding, are spun out of merino fiber, and they're well spun, and they are strong, and they are something we can really grab onto. Linda Ligon's poem ends with an important reminder. Making things whole takes more than thread, more than looms, more than warp and weft. It's those who make the looms, who make the cloth, who sing the songs together, who weave their lives together, who make things whole, whole cloth. We have choices in how we make the yarn, spin the yarn, make the thread, weave the cloth. We have choices in how we handle the tears and how carefully we deal with the razor wire and make the garment a mended whole. Belonging asks that we create a blanket with just the right weave to keep people warm when it's cold, and like a blanket from childhood, it asks that we create a shelter that's just the right size for those who need it. Belonging asks that we weave and spin and create garments that fit all our bodies, no matter what sizes. Belonging asks that we spin with wool from black and brown and white sheep, and belonging reminds us that this wool can be dyed not only red, white, and blue, but all the colors of the rainbow too. So let us start this work of connection and belonging by doing the work of connection and belonging, reaching out to the people and communities that are most affected, finding ways to protest, to know your rights, and to make sure others know theirs too. Being present with neighbors, joining in community. It means spinning your thread with those doing the work of connection and darning the garment back together, because this is where the work begins. Like learning to weave or spin, it might take practice. You might want to throw those balls of yarn across the room yet again. But I have to believe that this work will be worth it. Weave and spin, my friends. This is how our work begins. Mend and heal, take the dream and make it real. Strand by strand, hand over hand, thread by thread, we will weave our web. This is how the work of connection and belonging begins. Thank you.